Hey there, I'm Steve, and welcome to JamsinEntertainment. And welcome to the conversation. Just before we get started, there are many ways you can help. You can like and subscribe so you never miss the conversation. But most importantly, please share this video. Get the word out there as a community we can talk about all the things that we love. Today on Throwback Thursday, we're looking at Solo, a Star Wars movie. Starring Alden Ehrenreich. I'm just going to say this now. There's some names in here. I'm probably going to mispronounce it. I'm sorry. Jonas Suotama, Woody Harrelson, Emilia Clarke, Donald Glover, Thandi Wee Newton, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, Paul Bettany, and Aaron Kellerman. This is an origin story for Han Solo. Alden Ehrenreich is a decent Han. He's not the best. I think he's a little short. He doesn't quite look like Harrison Ford, but he definitely did his homework because he gets all the mannerisms correct and the inflections in his tone. They do pull from Star Wars Legends in this, and it's always a joy when they actually use source material. Now, they don't use much source material. A lot of this is just Disney, but some that they do is Han is from Corellia, and he joins the Imperial forces. Now, I believe in Legends he makes it up to lieutenant. I can't remember exactly. But in this one, he's just an infantryman in the Navy because he just wants to be a pilot. Now, I would be curious to know if they actually, did their homework and pulled from Legends, or they were just like, you know what? It'd be interesting if Han was in the Imperial military. Because they could have just thought of it on their own. I don't know. The other part of Legends is he frees Chewbacca from slavery, and that's really about it for Legends. All the characters are very interesting. Only downside is you don't necessarily care for them. Each character, you get 10 minutes of backstory and development, and Han's the really only one to develop, but there's not much for him to develop. He's pretty much the same Han you see in A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, and yes, even in the sequel trilogy. What would have made this better? I mean, a bunch would have made this better, but a couple touches. For instance, when Han signs up for the military, he's asked for his last name. He doesn't have one. And so the recruiter just oh, Solo. Han Solo. Because he just says he's here by himself. And for some reason, he decides to keep that name. And his iconic blaster is just given to him. It's not something that he has from the beginning, not something he just finds, just given to him. But let me get into the plot a little bit. So he starts out, you can tell this is Disney because they call him a scum rat. Whoever was part of the writing in this was like, you know what, I really like the movie Aladdin. He's on Corellia with his girlfriend Kira, and they just steal things and bring it back to Proxima, played by Linda Hunt. From the very start, Han is slipping up on jobs and getting into trouble for it, but he always has a clever way of getting out of situations like that. It would have been interesting to see that develop. Now, grant you, he's 18, 20 in the beginning of the movie, and so you can just say that's his life. He has no choice but to be this way. I don't know, just little things like that. Instead of just seeing Han young and develop would have been more interesting. Because the whole plan is for him and Kira to get off Corellia and just be in control of their own lives. So there's a substance, a Jamsin, called coaxium. It's what hyperfuel is made out of. It allows ships to travel and do hyperspace and stuff like that. He has a vial of it that they will use to bribe their way off the planet. And when that happens, him and Kira get separated. And shortly after joining the military, he finds himself in the middle of a war. And he runs into a group of smugglers. Beckett, Val, I didn't realize the one character, Rio Durant, is played by Jon Favreau. Some pretty good voice acting because I didn't recognize him at all. They get together, they form a crew, kind of. The initial three just want to leave Han there because they have their own thing to do. They even get him imprisoned, and that's how Han meets Chewie. And from here, it's just one heist after another. And there's an entire B-plot that I really think could have been removed from the movie. It doesn't really add anything into it other than the fact that it's saying it's part of a larger universe. Well, it's Star Wars. We know it's part of a larger universe. You don't need the start of a rebel faction to point that out. And it just solidifies more that Han is Han already. And it kind of takes away from A New Hope then, because of the whole, Han's out for himself thing, and then he comes back. I'll get into more detail about that when I get to A New Hope. There was so much development that could have been in this movie that there just wasn't. The B-plot I'm talking about is about Enfys Nest. This character is portrayed as a marauder that just wants to screw over other outlaws like Beckett. Then it becomes revealed that they're starting a rebellion with the goods that they steal. It's kind of like a Robin Hood type deal. You're stealing from the rich to give to the poor in order to have the poor rise up and fight the empire and criminal syndicates. The movie definitely would have played out just the same if this character and their group were not in this movie. Instead of having them in there, you could have had character development for Han. I think part of the issues in this movie is that originally it was supposed to be, and it was being directed by Phil Lord and Christopher Miller, the guys behind the Lego Movie. They also helped write Into the Spider-Verse. It's said they were taken off the project because they were taking Star Wars in the direction that Kathleen Kennedy didn't like. If you watch the podcast, not a fan of Kathleen Kennedy. She's good for marketing, but she's no Kevin Feige when it comes to having one idea for a franchise. That's why the sequel trilogy didn't work. A lot of complaints about this movie from everyone, including me, is that they play it too safe. That's what all my complaints have been about. I really wish there was a way to see what Phil Lord and Christopher Miller created. Unfortunately, probably not going to get that. They switched from those two to Ron Howard, which completes a very big circle. Ron Howard is in Lucas's second and third movie, American Graffiti and American Graffiti 2. So he goes from being an actor in those movies to directing a Star Wars movie. So it's interesting in that fact. Another standout role is Donald Glover playing Lando Calrissian. He also did his homework, watching Billy D. Williams and getting all the mannerisms and inflections down. And the dynamic that him and Han have, that's done very well. But because this movie's played so safe, you never really feel the tension that they're trying to portray in this movie. Because you know Chewie's gonna make it, Han's gonna make it, and Lando's gonna make it. You know they're safe. That's the problem. And they didn't really get you attached to the other characters for you to feel for them if something happens to them. You're given basic blueprints of side characters, and that's it. And the movie plays heavily into your nostalgia, playing a lot of music from the original trilogy, where unfortunately the themes in the original trilogy that you know are for certain characters or certain parts really don't mean what they used to mean. Although one thing that is pretty clever is that when Han goes to the military recruits, there's a propaganda commercial for the Empire, and the Imperial theme is the music playing in there. Now it's a variation of that, but it is pretty clever that they did that, so that's pretty cool. But the whole time, the movie's like, see, this is Star Wars, this is Star Wars. Like, yeah, we know it's Star Wars, but give us something new, give us something exciting. I mean, there are exciting parts in here. You get to see the Kessel Run and see how that actually is done in 12 parsecs. Because when it's first uttered in A New Hope, I think Lucas got criticized by the science community because 12 parsecs is a distance, not a time. But this movie corrects for that. Despite the problems I have with this movie, I really do enjoy it, and I think what bothers me the most is that it has such a cliffhanger at the end. I really want to see a second Solo movie. Bring in Phil Lord and Christopher Miller. Let them give the movie that they were directing. Let them have free reign, and I think it will be great. And I think it can be done, but sadly, I don't think we're going to get a sequel to this. It can work by itself, but just one more Solo movie. I think that would put a nice bow on Han Solo. And in the second movie, Han Solo can be Han Solo. You don't really have to develop him. It's just as interesting watching him get in and out of situations. It's just in this movie, I would like to have seen a real character arc instead of just like, oh, here's some things that really make him who you know he is in later movies. Those are my thoughts on Solo, a Star Wars movie. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and live your imagination.